Hi, I'm here for the, Street Fighter tournament. Are we playing on PC exclusively? Got my 2007 Philips controller. X button? You mean one? Okay, I love older, like, general controllers that aren't affiliated with Nintendo, Xbox, Nintendo, Microsoft, Sony. I mean, Philips, well, was affiliated with Nintendo for a little bit, but I came across this today, and I'm glad I held on to it. There's quite a few controllers I held on to: a Dreamcast controller, some 64 controllers, whether they're third party or imitation, or I still have my green one from Nintendo that I got alongside buying Majora's Mask. And yeah, that's still working well. That PC controller, though, I am going to be trying it whenever I get to Super Mario All-Stars. I definitely plan to play that. And I would like to try this PC controller. I'm going to use my Switch controller for Zelda, but I would like to try this. I mean, I'm also just fascinated by the hardware. Well, the software in the hardware of being the controller is still from 2007. So I almost want to, I want to live stream me plugging the controller in and then showing if there's anything that pops up, like, whoa, what is this driver, you know? But it was fun. Looking back, I got that controller because of Mugen. You know, nowadays we compete in Friday night, Sunday night Mugen. That all started in 7th grade. I was just fascinated by Mugen's open-ended potential as a fighting game engine, where you can just put a Street Fighter character, Mortal Kombat, Clay Fighter all in the same game. But I also wanted to play it. And so I was looking around for controllers. I mainly grew up with Nintendo, so the fact that there were PC controllers even back in the mid going to late 2000s is pretty cool. Now, of course, as time went on, things like Steam started officially supporting Xbox, PlayStation, Nintendo controllers. It's been a lot easier nowadays to use so many controllers from different consoles, but back then, yeah, you weren't really plugging your GameCube controller into a laptop unless you had crazy converters. But it's really cool to see how far we've gotten with that. In video games, whether it's first-person shooters, fighting games, Animal Crossing, you know, terrain is pretty big. Now, Animal Crossing, it's more about a pretty flat terrain, but there's still cliffs and all that. And in Animal Crossing's case, especially when they started with Wild World on the DS, things in the sky had interactive items and characters, Pete the Pelican. So there was always that sense of looking up. And, you know, the iconic line in Star Wars, it's "Over, Anakin, I have the high ground." It's not even... It's a meme because that fight is so memorable. It's also, you know, it's one of those things where you can both overthink it, but also simplify that tactic where, you know, at its core, in a duel, taking the high ground is pretty good. It's a pretty strong tactic, and that's the question is why? Why is taking a high ground can be pressed for a huge advantage against the opponent? And, you know, I've thought about that for years when I play these games. Team Fortress 2, Super Smash Brothers. Why is taking the high ground such a good strength by default? And really a big part is just gravity. These games are coded to mimic gravity in different ways. Obviously, in Super Smash Brothers, every character has different fall speeds, but regardless, they all fall. So by taking the top platform in this platform fighter, I can now kite my options against my opponent. And really at the core of it all is, what is the goal to win? How does high ground prove to be a strength for winning? In Star Wars' case, it's interesting to think about that Obi-Wan says he has the high ground on Mustafar. Okay, and what is he holding? What's kind of the choke point to his win he's going after? Well, the win is Anakin is arrogantly saying, don't make me kill you, right? At the start of their duel. And so Anakin's goal is to kill Obi-Wan Kenobi. He's now Darth Vader. He's wrathful with his power. Again, he's arrogant. So Obi-Wan knows that he is the goal. Obi-Wan dying is Anakin's ambition. Because if Obi-Wan dying wasn't his ambition, it makes you wonder how far that lava raft would have gone. It's on some kind of routine maintenance with the Mustafar workers there at the factory, multiple factories. I'm pretty sure they're all in one business where the duel happens. Regardless, it is interesting to ask how long would that raft last? Where's the raft going? And I guess if you look at the terrain of like the lava fall and the lava rivers, Obi-Wan might have been able to just keep following Anakin on the terrain, and Anakin would have to decide when he's going to leap off of the boat. This is how, you as a tactician, you think about things like the high ground. In this case, Obi-Wan was, I think, initially just predicting that Anakin would arrogantly try to get off the raft while he maintains that high ground, and so you underestimate my power, and then bam, it just like in Smash Brothers, they call it the tournament stock. It's a joke about when you're on the ledge, if you jump from ledge, you are exposed for a while. You're put into this state where the opponent oftentimes can get a hit, depending on, you can mix up things and your opponent might not expect it. And so he basically does do a tournament winner jump, and Obi-Wan punishes him, which this also, it's crazy how much Star Wars does relate to competitive fighting games, FPS games. I love Star Wars Battlefront 2. Shout outs to that game. What a great character-based shooter before that was even a subgenre. I've said that a lot, but it's impactful for sure. And the fact that Obi-Wan was able to win based off of being conservative, patient, and looking for weaknesses to exploit is something you see a lot in top-level fighting games, FPS games. I was just talking about TF2 and the skill ceiling of offense versus defense, and in defense, being able to recognize your choke points and holding those choke points, holding on to stopping your opponent from advancing is pretty big for whichever objective it is, taking over a point, pushing a payload. Being able to recognize the game state and using your terrain to your advantage is huge. You look at a map like Badwater, and you hold those top plateaus, because the high ground here and the rules of gravity is, if I'm playing soldier, my rockets, shooting from top to bottom is really strong because the rockets explode. There's hitboxes there, so you can get splash damage. Aiming from above, and as soldier, I can kite my options. I can choose to go down. But if I'm the opposing team starting on the lowest floor, traversing up is its own method of work. It's its own decision of work. So I'm traversing up while also probably having to try to kill my opponents and pushing the objective. It's no wonder that offense tends to respawn faster than defense. But on the other end, if you're not taking advantage of the terrain like Obi-Wan, like a soldier player in defense, you're sacrificing a lot that's given to you. And by doing that, if an opponent just keeps showing up and trying to rush you down with brute force, they might eventually get you if, again, you're not taking advantage of using patience and recognizing those key areas that the opponent wants. In Star Wars' case, Anakin wanted Obi-Wan dead. Obi-Wan's like, all right, here I am. And so, that question of, it is great to see people actually brainstorm, why is the high ground such a good advantage point in general? And it really is, gravity, the game state of things, being able to, just in life itself, being able to have a good outlook of what's around you, your surroundings. That's a big part of survival. Look at how many birds are able to traverse over so much danger because they can fly. That being said, there's obviously dangers in the air, but being able to look around you and your surroundings and analyze what's going on, and if there is a predator heading your way, a saber-toothed tiger, and you have a good high ground. In fact, being able to just see above the grass was a big advantage for humans in general. You can, alert your tribe and take the right precautions for holding a choke point, stopping the tiger, knowing that it's going after you. It wants some dinner. And so it's fun that the high ground is both a complex but simple question to ask. I love that there is a map in Metroid Prime Hunters, another character FPS game in the 2000s before that became a subgenre. And I've talked so much about Battlefront 2, TF2, and Metroid Prime Hunters, all hitting 20th anniversaries lately. TF2 will be next year. And Metroid Prime Hunters had a map called High Ground, and that's actually where you encounter Spire for the first time in the campaign. And it's cool. It's cool seeing Spire lob magmal shots from the top. His primary weapon is a flare gun grenade launcher, so it's able to do splash damage. It's highly affected by gravity. It bounces on the floor, can do wall bounces. So I actually love that the developers put him in a really strong position with a good primary weapon affiliated with that. What's cool about gravity, though, is that the Magmal ironically uses gravity to its advantage from the low ground as well. It's one of the only two weapons that will fall to gravity in that game, along with the battle hammer. So it actually creates this distinct scenario where if you're on the low ground or the low floor and your opponent's trying to press for a high ground, maybe they're giving you the speech, "It's over, Spire, I have the high ground." The Magmal, because it lobs, can actually hit them even if they use the high ground to shield. And so it's really cool that you can take pot shots and get potential kills from low to high ground there as well. Kind of taking advantage of knowing the opponent is using the high ground defensively. And so that's, one other thing is by taking the high ground, you can use height as another measure of defense. So finding these ways around that, like I mentioned saber-toothed tigers, but a lot of cats are evolved to climb pretty fast because there's so much prey that has adapted to taking the high ground. This constant push and shove of, how do you adjust around heights? How do you analyze what's around you with the height you're given, whether it's the low ground or the high ground? I mean, this isn't even in competitive games. This is also in single player games. The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask, they have dungeons like the Water Temple and the Woodfall Temple that are highly designed around layering, the high ground. You get to the high ground later in the dungeon in a central room. Both the Water Temple and the Woodfall Temple start you in the central room on a lower portion of it. But then as you progress through the dungeon, you kind of just come around. It's like an anchor room. You come around to this basically, I'd say lobby, but they both have their own entrances. But you do come around to the center room later on a higher terrain. And that new perspective allows you to analyze more of like how to get through the whole dungeon. Oh, I can shoot my arrow through this torch and it starts this filtering machine in Woodfall Temple. Oh, there's multiple floors in the Water Temple to raise and lower the water level. I'm probably going to have to go back down once the water level is lowered. But that kind of analysis you can get by just being in a high ground position, even for a little bit, is really cool. It really is one of those cases where you start to factor in how much height and where you are in the terrain can make a big impact on your next decision. I love Mondays.